563rd episode of Robservations, the show about something, is brought to you by the first annual Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival. Going on now. There'll be films dropping all through the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. I hope you enjoy them. You've still got time. If you get that application in by the 1st of December and finish your film by the 15th, you can still play it. You know you want to. You know it. I know it, and you know it. Well, greetings, Imagination Connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of cinema and sci-fi, your archbishop of Banterbury, your chancellor of cheerfulness, your pharaoh of physical media, and, of course, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett. That's right, and I am robcasting at you. Robcasting at you from the Robservatory. You Imagination Connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. Great to have you here. You know, I always think there's going to be nothing to talk about, but there is something to talk about. As many of you know, as dissatisfied as I may be with the current state of Star Trek, I have to say there is a lot of other great science fiction and fantasy programming coming down the pike at us. Unfortunately, the Dark Crystal series only lasted a season, but it was amazing. We've got everything from the Umbrella Academy and The Boys. We've got Carnival Row, which I really like because it was based on a spec script I wanted to see made almost 20 years ago. But clearly, I think the best science fiction television series going now in terms of, well, space opera, all of that, is The Expanse. And as everyone knows, The Expanse is based on a series, award-winning series of science fiction novels. There is going to be 9 total, 8 have been published, and The Expanse has been doing a pretty good job. Sometimes there's overlap, but doing a book a season, which is how I think any book series should be adapted in our new age of streaming. Well, today it was announced, unfortunately, it was announced that The Expanse is coming to an end with season 6. Now, at first, well, hang on. Let me read. The Expanse was renewed for season 6. We all know that The Expanse season 5 starts next month. The Expanse renewed for 6th and final season by Amazon ahead of season 5 premiere. Amazon Studios has set an end date for The Expanse. The popular sci-fi drama has received an early renewal for season 6, which will be its last. Not returning for the final season is original cast member Cass Anvar, who faced a slew of sexual misconduct allegations during the summer. The rest of the cast, led by Stephen Strait and longtime Expanse showrunner Naren Shankar of Next Generation fame, will be back. The season 6 renewal comes 3 weeks before the December 16th season 5 debut on Prime Video in more than 240 countries and territories. I hear season 6 is tentatively slated to begin production January 20th, with the target start date subject to change amidst fluid pandemic conditions. The Alcon produced The Expanse based on James S.A. Corey's best-selling novels. Originally was picked up by Sci-Fi, where it aired for 3 seasons. Following its cancellation in 2018, the show's army of passionate fans launched a massive Save Our Show campaign, which helped seal the deal at Amazon. The space drama's 4th season was released globally as an Amazon original series in December of 2019. Should be noted that unlike the 4th series, they are not going to drop The Expanse all at once. They're going to follow the model of The Boys, where you got 3 episodes of the 5th season, and then it's going to be released on a weekly basis, which, by the way, if you're asking me, and I know you are, I think that's the way to deal with streaming shows. I think dropping them all at once, I know from my own experience, they're in one ear and out the other. You know, people stream it, they binge it, and then they're on to the next, unless it becomes a water cooler binge like The Queen's Gambit has. But I think a show like The Expanse, I know for me, while I'm also a glutton and I love to gorge myself on great streaming shows, I guess you could just wait until it's all out, but I'm not going to wait. But I do like the weekly anticipation. I feel like I enjoy things more that way. I think about the episodes that I've seen, or in the case of Star Trek Discovery, I get more enraged the more I think about them, which is in itself not a bad thing. I mean, it makes you think more, and even rage is something, to break the monotony, right? But I do think that it's good. I think it gives people more time to talk about things. Same, look at how The Mandalorian goes. People talk about it. From the moment we committed to bringing this show to life up until the final season, we have worked tirelessly to honor the vision of the writers, said Andrew Kosove and Broderick Johnson, the co-CEOs and co-founders of Alcon Television Group and executive producers of The Expanse. We prided ourselves on having one of the most diverse casts on television and giving a platform to stories that matter. I would say that is another. I think The Expanse does diversity correctly. And it's not like, hi, aren't we so diverse? Look, there's somebody in a wheelchair on a starship. So you don't get that. You get true diversity. And what I love about The Expanse is, set in the human future in our own solar system, there's a lot of mixed race people, which I think is amazing. I think that's where humanity is heading anyway. So I really love to see all the different people that they populate The Expanse with. I find it to be one of the most, in terms of me being the viceroy of verisimilitude, really love that about this cast, and they don't ask to be patted on the back for it. We have prided ourselves on having one of the most diverse casts on television and giving a platform to stories that matter. And special thanks to Daniel Abraham and Ty Franek, the writers of both the books in the series, and Naren Shankar, the series showrunner and executive producer. It continues to be an honor and a privilege to work with this team. We would also like to thank Amazon for their continuing support to help us tell this story in its fullest and to bring The Expanse to a global audience. The Expanse is set in a future where humanity has colonized the solar system. The people of Earth, Mars, and the asteroid belt have long been in opposition with one another. When the crew of the Rocinante uncovers an ancient alien technology, a vast conspiracy begins to emerge, one that will bring the solar system to the brink of war. The Expanse is high-action sci-fi adventure that explores the depth of humanity against the far-spanning reaches of the known universe. The dedication and artistry of everyone who helps bring The Expanse to the screen is incredible, says Shankar, who has served as the executive producer and showrunner on all seasons. Our fans are awesome, and we cannot wait to get rolling on Season 6. The Hugo Award-winning series was developed and scripted by the Oscar-nominated Children of Men writing duo Mark Fergus and Hawk Otsby, who executive produced the series alongside Shankar, Kosove, and Johnson, Laura Lancaster, Sharon Hall, Sean Daniel, Jason Brown, and Dan Nowak. The Expanse is produced by Alcon Television Group. So for those of you who don't know much about The Expanse, so there are 9 books, and we are up to Season 5 would be based on the book Nemesis Games. Now, if you haven't read the books, I'm not going to get into spoilers. I don't want to ruin what is going to happen in Season 5, but let's just say the shit hits the fan. As you might imagine if you watch Season 4. Definitely a cliffhanger on the end of Season 4. There's a lot of shenanigans happening throughout the solar system, and those shenanigans are going to get very big and shenanigan-like. But I will say this. For anybody that is bummed out that they're going to stop at Babylon's Ashes, which is the 6th book, I think you should not feel so bad. Remember, we got 3 more seasons than we thought we were going to get after they brought it back. But what I find really interesting for those of you who watch or read the books and don't know this, the time between the end of book 6 and book 7, 30 years pass. There is a massive time jump in the books. And I think where they end at Season 6 is actually a satisfying place to end the story, at least from my way of thinking. And I don't think anybody should fret, and because it is a big leap. And I think Season 6, for those, what's really interesting too is, hey, if you want to go beyond Season 6, Persepolis Rising, Tiamat's Wrath, and Leviathan Falls, the 9th book, which hasn't come out yet. Of course, the first book is Leviathan Wakes. Book 9 is Leviathan Falls. So I think definitely it's a good place to end the show. And how cool is it that you actually have 3 novels which follow that are canonical, and you won't need to read the first 6 books, although you probably should. I think it's kind of a cool way to do it, and I think good for them for doing that. I think that's a very way to do it. You know, the real problem when you're making shows that go into season 7, usually after season 6, you've got to renegotiate contracts and things like that. And if they wanted to do, like, if they decide to do, for whatever reason, the final 3 books in the series, they'd have to renegotiate everybody's contract for probably the 3. Now, I would bet. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's done. I mean, it probably is done, but in this day and age, never count anybody out. I mean, this show was already canceled once, and then we got 3 more seasons. So what if someone else picked it up and did season 7, 8, 9? You never know. Maybe there'll be another letter writing campaign. You just don't know what's going to happen. In this day and age, I wouldn't put it past anyone to bring back The Expanse. That's the time we're living in. For all the wackiness that's going on, it seems I see light at the end of the tunnel. I was watching our new potential Secretary of State speaking today. Very impressive speaker. I'm like, that's a statesman. So it was giving me some hope today, watching a government official speak. When was the last time that happened? Felt good. Felt good to see. So, you know what else feels good? Apparently, I'm getting my second sight, Dawn of the Dead, tomorrow. As people know, on our show, Let's Get Physical Media, that I do with Dieter Bastian in Saarbrücken, Deutschland, he was able to acquire one for me. I didn't buy it through Zavvi, although I probably could have, I guess, or Diabolic DVD. I'm very happy because it's probably my most eagerly awaited piece of physical media that I've ever looked forward to. So, can't wait to get that. It's Christmas early in November for me. At least I hope. Cross fingers. I hope it doesn't get stolen off the porch or something like that. Basically, that's all I want to talk about. You know, I'm excited. We can't do a real long show today because, believe it or not, I have more work to do at 4. All good, though. All very, very good. Very exciting for me, too. So I'm just going to jump right in and ask a question. Now, here's one. This is interesting. I'm going to read this letter. I wasn't going to read it online, but I'm going to read it anyway because I think it speaks to filmmaking in general. Hello, I've already contacted you through email, but I just want to make sure you get my message. I hope you don't mind if I repeat myself by cutting and pasting my original email. Obviously, I can't attach relevant images here, so if you need further clarification, please don't hesitate to contact me. Hello, greetings from Northern England. Greetings from Northern Ireland. I don't want to say Northern England. I apologize for saying it. Greetings from Northern Ireland. By the way, if you haven't watched the film, the world premiere, it's our second entry from 2 filmmakers that are incredibly talented. They did the first film, Crawl Space, that everyone likes, who's watched movies from the Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival. Their second film, Bed Bug, another fine entry. This filmmaking duo is, I don't know if they're boyfriend-girlfriend, they're not brother and sister, they're just friends. I don't know. I think they're a pretty exciting filmmaking duo, these 2. I'd love to see them do a feature and see what they come up with. I like their twisted sense of, I wouldn't call it humor, but I like whatever twisted sense they're bringing to us, to the festival, so it's great. But anyway, this is someone else. Greetings from Northern Ireland. My name is Mark McCone, and I have been working for over a month now on The Thing That Happened, an entry for the IICFF. My collaborators and I are just waiting on the delivery of the final soundtrack, and this exciting project will be complete. However, I was looking at the rules, and I've been in a total quandary for a week now. The whole aesthetic of the film is inspired by the photocopied look of old punk fanzines. There are 3 shots that feature an animated cut and paste collage in the background. That sounds dope. The longest being about 9 seconds. No one is recognizable in these heavily scrambled images that are sourced from old fanzines. I don't, however, want to break the rules of the contest and get anyone in trouble. I've attached screen grabs from the shots mentioned. If you feel I would be compromising to the festival, I will not upload the finished film. Mark, bruh. Come on, man. You gotta upload your finished film. I don't think it's a problem. Look, what Mark is asking is a very smart question to ask. For those of you who are making movies, there is something called E&O insurance, errors and omissions insurance. So let's say you make a film, you're making an indie movie, right? And it's like Clerks. You're making it with your parents' credit cards. Or you got your own credit cards, and you're already up to your ears in student debt. You're making a movie anyway. And you use someone's car in the movie. And say you're making a movie about a serial killer who drives around in that car and whacks people. And maybe does it in the back seat of the car. Well, and let's say the car is a Ford or a Chevy. And your movie sells and it's going to come out. That's a problem if you didn't get permission to use Ford or Chevy. Now, the problem is you've made a movie where you're using Ford and Chevy or one or the other. Now, I'm not saying that Ford and Chevy vehicles are being used to murder people. I'm not. But in the case of this particular hypothetical movie that I'm talking about right now, they were. Well, Ford and Chevy are like, you can't just use in a movie a Ford or a Chevy and show their brand, their logos, their cars. You can't do that. You can get in trouble, and that's why you have E&O insurance. If someone sues you, that's what the insurance is for. Ford comes after you and says, hey. But when you're making a film, you always have to be very aware of you cannot show people, real people. You cannot show products and things without getting permission of some kind. You might have to license the image. If Ford is not afraid of that sullying their image, they're not, because on one hand, you might have somebody who says, while Ford doesn't advocate murder, if a serial killer chooses to use Ford, that's kind of an endorsement of our product. No, I'm just kidding. Probably not. But you do always have to get permission. Now, that's if you are going to sell a movie and profit commercially. Now, the filmmaker is not profiting off putting his movie or her movie in our film festival, or their movie, or maybe their movie in our film festival. I mean, we do monetize the films, but for the amount of views, you're looking at $10 and $20. There's not enough money. It's not hurting anyone, and I don't think that our film festival would have a problem. But if you were making a film to sell, you would have a problem. That's why there's things like product placement. There's even companies that do product placement where you can go to one of these companies and say they'll look at your script, they'll look at the people involved, and they'll say, okay, we want to become involved. And what they do is they go out and get you product placement. Shoes, electronics, cars, clothing, products like water, soda, beer, alcohol. They'll do all of that they get a fee for doing it, but they also can bring you all of those things, and then they're cleared and you won't have a problem. So that is something that you always should be mindful of. It's just like, architecture is also copywritten. So for instance, if you want to use LA's very famous Griffith Park Observatory, where they shot the knife fight and Rebel Without a Cause, you can't put the Griffith Park Observatory in your movie unless you license the image of the Griffith Park Observatory. You have to pay not only a location fee to shoot there, but you actually have to license the image. It's copywritten architecture. And there's a lot, like if you point a camera down a street in certain cities and things like that, I believe the Flatiron Building in New York City is copywritten. So you can't just shoot it. You might think you could, wait a minute, really? Yeah, really. And you have to be very careful. Like if you go into Broadway, and shoot all the lights on Broadway, if you're advertising all the different plays that are shooting there, you might have to go in and get all of that, or license whatever shows up. There is a shot in Tango Shalom that it's a quick shot of Times Square. It's a gag. We made it into an effect shot, but it was stock footage that we purchased. We licensed that piece of stock footage, so the stock footage company they assure us that that piece of footage is okay to use. And then we took that piece of stock footage and made it our own by putting our own screen that we were projecting on. And but again, that was one of the reasons we did something like that, is so we don't have a problem. But that's why you get E&O insurance, errors and omissions insurance. And when we made, for instance, when we made Free Enterprise, we referred to people and places and things, and we were showing things. And there's a report that you get back that any responsible filmmaker will get. And the report will come back, and usually it's a couple of pages that'll say, okay, well, you mentioned this. This might be a problem. There's lawyers that handle this as well. And when you're an independent filmmaker, these are things you have to look into. So our report was over 60 pages on Free Enterprise, which means we have to go through and you have to get what are called clearances. So, for instance, we couldn't show any Star Wars toys in the characters' bedrooms or things in their houses when we were making Free Enterprise, because the movie was going to be rated R. And at that time, 20 years ago, Lucasfilm said, no, we don't want any Star Wars merchandise in movies that are rated R. Now, other people, for instance, I went to Gene Simmons' house, Gene Simmons of Kiss. I went to his house and I pitched him. I said, hey, one of the producers was a friend of his, and normally he charges through the roof for using Kiss merchandise. But I said, look, these characters refer to Kiss action figures, the McFarlane Kiss action figures, and one of them is wearing a jacket of the painting of Eugene that was on the cover of your solo album. And he was very gracious, and he was very nice. And he said, you know what? You can use all of our materials free of charge. Now, I don't think he does that for everybody, but it's something that you have to go do, and a lot of filmmakers don't think that. So, Mark, I really appreciate you sending this in. It's not a problem for the film festival. Make your film, send it in. I can't wait to get it. And I think it's really important, though, that filmmakers remember this lesson, because you can get in trouble. You know, I edited a film. This is really annoying, but I spent a year editing a film from a video game writer, and Orion Walker, and the movie is called Dean Quixote. Now, I worked on this film for a year. I thought it was a great movie. We did it 20 years ago, and there's a band in the end of the movie, a band named Guided by Voices, and they sing 3 songs. It's like a club scene at the end of the film. And the film, if you're a David Lynch fan, it's a coming-of-age story. It's a story of college kids, but somehow they had a change in management, and something happened with the contracts or something, and their new manager didn't want the film, like they had to renegotiate the contracts. The movie's been sitting on a shelf for 20 years, unseen, except at a few festivals. I thought I did some really good work on it. It was the movie that I worked on right after Free Enterprise, Dean Quixote, and no one's ever seen it because there was some problem with the band. And I would have contested it. I mean, the band was brought out to California. They shot their scenes. They played their songs. And yet, because of that band, the movie's never been seen. It sat on a shelf for 20 years. A story of my career. But very, very disappointing. So remember, kids, when you're making a movie, these kinds of things that Mark's talking about are very important to remember. So, Mark, good on you for asking. Don't worry. Finish your film. This one comes in from Omar94. Hi, Rob. I wanted to give another movie review like I did for Tequila Sunrise and Black Rain, so here goes. By the way, Tequila Sunrise, one of my favorite films of the late 80s, and I can never get enough of it. With Ivan Reitman, you think of movies like Ghostbusters, Twins, and Kindergarten Cop. However, he did other films like Meatballs, Stripes, and Dave, which in my opinion is his best movie, Junior, and some others. But I wanted to talk about one film he did which nobody really talks about, which I saw many months ago and didn't really think about until recently. That movie is 1986's Legal Eagles, starring Robert Redford, Deborah Winger, Daryl Hannah, Brian Dennehy, and Terrence Stamp. What a great cast, but the movie, I don't know, Omar, what are you going to say about it? The plot of the movie revolves around a woman on trial for murder and is trying to receive or retrieve a piece of artwork from her childhood. Overall, I found the film to be underwhelming. I think the problem was I felt Reitman was trying to tell too much story in a short period of time, causing it to be overstuffed, and eventually collapse in on itself. It's an interesting film as it tries combining several genres like crime, mystery, legal thriller, comedy, and romance, but it failed in the comedy and romance genres, in my opinion. If the characters were combined and it was just one character, the movie might have worked better. The comedy and romance failed because there were some moments trying to be comedic, like this one scene of Redford's character making a mess in his kitchen when he is with his daughter, but it ended up not working. The romance failed because the relationship between Redford and Winger follows the cliche where a man and woman are at odds with each other, but eventually falling for each other by the end, causing it to not be very interesting. All the serious stuff like the murder mystery was more interesting, but that's not saying much because unfortunately, since too much story was trying to be told in a short period of time, it didn't work. Since there were a lot of interesting plot points, but they were very underdeveloped, and every time it tries being interesting, the movie cuts to Redford and Winger's characters' careers and personal lives, while occasionally trying to figure out what's going on with the murder. While I think there were a lot of good actors in the movie, all of their performances were very underwhelming and not their best. There was one scene which made no sense to me with Daryl Hannah doing a song and dance performance for Robert Redford in a warehouse. Let me just say, I think that if Daryl Hannah was doing a song and dance performance for me, it would certainly make sense. Hubba hubba. The movie might have been better if it was serious, so all the attempts at comedy and romance would be cut out. Redford and Winger's characters were combined into one character. Cut out the song and dance performance and make it longer in order to flesh out the whole overall crime mystery and legal drama. Overall, I found Legal Eagles to be underwhelming and probably not something others would be interested in seeing, I don't think. You guys can check it out if you want, but it's not something I will be revisiting. Thanks, and live long and prosper. You know, Legal Eagles is a movie that so often would happen in sort of the 70s or the 80s, I think. Big studio movies. You had a director who was trying to class up his game. Ivan Reitman, I mean, obviously we loved his comedies. He wanted to make something that was comedic, but also wanted to elevate himself and deal with non-comedic actors like Robert Redford. I mean, come on, leading man for many, many years, and it just didn't work. I think he didn't jump out of his wheelhouse too much, but yeah, it's great stuff. Could have been, but I remember seeing it in the theater and I was just underwhelmed. You know, it wouldn't have even been a good episode of television. But you got to give it up for a director trying to move out of their wheelhouse. But that's why it doesn't happen very often. Not a good movie. Gabriel Pedersen is here. Hi, Rob. I have watched Star Trek all my life until Discovery. I found comfort and safety there, escapism, and wonder. Discovery looks like Star Trek, but it does not feel like Star Trek. I wonder why I felt that way. And today I had a thought. Since this show is a platform for ideas rather than sci-fi storytelling, is it possible this show does not appeal to me as a man because it is produced for women? The stories lines are all centered around women, and Michael is a renegade with severe mood swings who is always crying and disobeying orders. The music is either bombastic or silly, and the men are feminine and always defer to women nearby, always thanking them and overall standing in the background. So, does this show have a female audience that really likes what they see? Was Kirk this male-centric back in the day? I have fond memories of Voyager, and they had a good balance of male and female, and I never felt it wasn't for me. Anyway, it was just a thought. Thanks for a great show. Gabriel. Well, Gabriel, I think you actually do make a good point. And I think, obviously, as Star Trek has moved through its history, especially after Next Generation, Deep Space Nine and Voyager, I think, did a great job of balancing female characters and male characters. Clearly, Deep Space Nine certainly had Avery Brooks, Sisko, running the show, but as the story moved along, there was a lot of really compelling female characters. I think Louise Fletcher as Kai Wynn is one of the more interesting and compelling antagonist characters in all of science fiction television. Obviously, Nana Visitor as Kira Nerys is a great character. Terry Farrell as Dax, and then there are all kinds of other female peripheral characters that they brought into the show that would come and go. And the same was true of, obviously, Voyager. Roxanne Biggs-Dawson, who she was great, and so is Janeway in 7 of 9. There were lots of strong female characters, but there were also male characters as well. Look, I think what the problem with Voyager, the problem with Discovery, is that the reason you don't think it feels like a Star Trek show is because there isn't really, from a Star Trek standpoint, they're not really telling Star Trek stories. They've got all this kind of skewed or this mutated Star Trek imagery, but they're not really telling a Star Trek story. And it's sort of strange. And when they do tell Star Trek stories, like, for instance, you know, the episode where they go to the seed pod ship when the Discovery is trying to prove itself to the Starfleet of the 32nd century, and the story, they go to a place and they meet a guy and his family is dead and he's phased out of existence and all that, but the story is still about the Discovery going to get those seeds. And what they found there isn't really the focus of the episode. The focus of the episode, once again, is that Michael Burnham must come in literally and talk this guy down. So the episode is really about, once again, Michael Burnham doing something to prove that she is the shit. And I think that's a problem with the episodes. I mean, it all comes back to Michael Burnham doing this or Michael Burnham doing that, and it's not really about a crew of a starship going out and seeking out, well, to boldly go where no one has gone before. You could say, well, they've gone into the 32nd century. Yeah, but what if they've gone into the 32nd century, and you know they're going to end up at the end of the season solving whatever problem befell everyone, which means that the crew of the Discovery is smarter than everybody else wherever they go. And that isn't really what Star Trek is all about, because Star Trek is all about our characters learning something about the universe or about humanity or about something. And really, Star Trek Discovery is about all of, like, Michael Burnham already knows all these answers and is taking them to everybody else, which is sort of strange. I mean, it's a show, like I said, it's a show about feelings as opposed to a show about being an allegorical action adventure science fiction show. They try and do that, but really, name a Discovery episode where the plot was memorable. You got so swept up in what was going on. It's all feeling moments that people remember on this show, and conversations. And it's weird. It's like that's all they've forgotten. Boldly going where no one has gone before, and now it's all. It feels like every episode of Discovery is some kind of therapy session. Somebody is working out their emotional trauma somehow. And in every episode of this season, there's some kind of trauma happening somewhere. And while I get that, and nowadays, I mean, everybody's so, whether you're in therapy or whether you're being told that you're special or whatever, I think Star Trek does reflect the times that we live in. And it's a show that, I guess, says to everybody that we're all special. And us as individuals. And I think really, that's kind of that's odd, but hey, I think that might be. It's not just that it's a female-centric show. Forget the fact that Michael Burnham is female, but they've written a character where she's literally at the center of the universe, and I think that becomes problematic when you're trying to tell. There is no ensemble. There is this Star Trek Discovery is about Michael Burnham, and it's her universe, and we all just live in it. And I think that's the problem. The problem is that Michael Burnham is not that interesting of a character. They have not written her to be very multifaceted. And I think that's one of the problems. I think maybe that's what you're referring to. But I don't think it's because she's a female character per se. I just think that they've written her like she's Space Jesus. She's a space messiah. And it's really gotten in the way of what Star Trek at its core is as a show, I think. Philip Alvarez, Black Philip Alvarez is here. How are you, sir? Greetings, Rob, and the fellow PGS community. Well, this is my first letter to the Robservations show. It's true. You usually write to whining about movies. It won't be so happy like my previous ones. So allow me to apologize ahead of time. This one is more of a concern, or we'll just be looking for some answers, and who better to ask than the man himself, RMB. I don't know, I'll try and answer. Perhaps a bit of sarcasm there if you know my writing styles. Okay, now back on Robservations, episode 561. You talked about The Mandalorian gaining relevance by getting political. Well, I was sharing an article where they were making mention of that. This became a huge red flag in my eyes. No, I will not get too political, hopefully. I tried looking for answers from the chat, but politics is frowned upon, and rightfully so. Not a criticism, since I hate politics as well. It can get pretty messy at times. I'm hoping, Rob, that you can elaborate more and help me gain a little peace of mind on such a touchy subject. Well, here's the thing. I think politics is a huge part of storytelling. It's certainly a huge part of genre storytelling. I think the difference is, I think we absolutely should be able to discuss politics and political theory. We just don't need to discuss personal politics, necessarily what we believe. But I think when you're talking about Star Wars and you want to talk about a rebel band fighting an empire, that's definitely political. And when you're talking about the structure of the galaxy, you're having political conversations, but you're not talking about whether or not you voted for Trump or you voted for Joe Biden. It's not personal, but I think politics is a huge part of history. It's a huge part of interpersonal relationships. It's a huge part of the local scene. I mean, whenever somebody gets a permit to renovate their house, they're involving themselves in the political process. It becomes political and a bureaucratic nightmare trying to get those forms. But anyway, I'm going to help you gain some peace of mind on a touchy subject. Now, to me, pretty much anything can be turned into a political issue or debate nowadays. But does it really belong in entertainment? I've always believed entertainment is supposed to be an escape from reality and not a reminder. Am I crazy for asking how can a fictional world which doesn't exist become political? I ask this because it's no secret that I'm not much a fan of Star Trek and Star Wars. The Mandalorian becoming more political will certainly not get me to watch the show or change my attitude. I try and remain open-minded, but this certainly doesn't help. So again, Rob, I come to you as a concerned fan for the best possible answer. I wanted to say more, but I didn't want this letter to appear pessimistic or condescending towards two beloved sci-fi franchises. Take care and be safe out there. Happy Thanksgiving to you and my fellow PGS community. My happy Thanksgiving is going to be Trinidad the Island Man's letter that he wrote to me that I will be sharing with you all tomorrow. So tune in. It's a lengthy letter, but it'll put a smile on your face. Because Trinidad the Island Man is your island man. Well, Philip, let me tell you. Again, when you watch Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which I think is great, that whole movie is about a clandestine organization that is trying to set up surveillance on everyone. And if they want to carry out political assassinations, they can. They can use shield helicarriers and they can assassinate people from like hundreds of miles away. And all of those issues that the Winter Soldier raises and Captain America's battle in that film is all political. It's all political based. I mean, but it's about politics in general. The idea of what does it mean to be a member of a free society? How do we maintain our free society without allowing it to become a fascistic dictatorship? Why is it that we need safe spaces on campuses now? Why are certain guest speakers shouted down? Why are they not allowed to speak? Freedom of speech is one of the basic tenets of our civilization, and yet there are many, specifically young people, who would rather do away with it. Now, I think that what's interesting here, if you watch Captain America, the Winter Soldier, it's a very political movie. It's talking about political subjects. I love political subjects, for one. I mean, when you organize a society like we have into a large body, the body politic becomes vast. I think politics is a day-to-day occurrence. We're all being political in our daily lives. in some way, shape, or form. So I don't shy away from politics, but I think the problem is when people start revealing their own personal politics, then they start yelling and screaming at each other. But I think carrying on, like, what does American democracy mean? What does the idea of democracy mean to you personally? I think everybody should know the answer to that. What do they feel about it? How do you feel about living in a democratic republic? I think the idea, for instance, the issue of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, that is obviously a political issue, but unfortunately, we have made it not very nuanced. There are some people that want to have guns, and there are some people that don't necessarily want guns. And it becomes a very volatile issue because people have forgotten how to debate with nuance and say that it isn't just a cut or dried issue. It's a multifaceted issue that can also be dealt with in many different ways. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think our political system here in the United States, all of our political discourse has become so polarized. You're either on one side or the other, when really I don't think anybody is 100% right wing or conservative or 100% left wing or liberal or whatever. I think I know that my political views run the gamut. I have a spectrum of political views about a lot of things. Some people would say certain views I have are Republican or maybe even right wing. Other people would just call me a Dem libtard. And I think that that's something that we need to get back to. We need to be able to talk about politics in public forums without yelling and screaming at each other. I mean, come on, we're adults. We're mature people. And I know you never talk to anybody about religion or politics. I get it. But I think, moving forward, we need to become mature enough where I think that we can. And look, when The Mandalorian is becoming, I'll give you an example. There's an issue that we don't deal with yet that we're going to have to deal with in the future a lot. And movies like Gattaca touch on it. Bioengineering of all kinds, medical technology, advancements in medical technology. We have not addressed what is the efficacy? Where are we at in terms of designer babies? When we're at the place where we can design children the way we want them to be, the color of their hair, the color of their eyes, their level of intelligence, when we can start doing that, and make no mistake, this isn't far away. Well, once we have that ability, how are we going to limit that ability? How are we going to allow natural selection to continue on and play a part in our biology and our evolution? Or will we? Are we going to regulate that kind of thing? Parents are going to decide their children based on fashion and what they want at the time. Are we going to allow that? I don't know. But those are political issues we're going to have to start to wrap our heads around, because medical advances, genetic advancing, CRISPR technology, there's a lot going on that we're going to have to be able to talk about without, taking arms against one another and getting on either side of the fence. We have to start really delving into these issues and discussing them. If we don't, we're going to have a problem. But anyway, so in The Mandalorian, that article I read, when it talked about touching on political issues, it means it was touching on political issues the same way any great science fiction does. Great science fiction, to me, has always been an allegorical way to address issues that can be very cantankerous or that can be very divisive amongst people. But when done through the lens of an action-adventure science fiction show, everybody will listen to these kinds of arguments presented in different ways without themselves getting political with one another, because they're talking about a show. They're not talking about their own politics. That's why The Twilight Zone and Star Trek were so important when they were coming out in the late 50s and 60s, because you could have these discussions. I mean, I think about one of the great political discussions that ever took place in Star Trek, again, was in A Private Little War, the episode of Private Little War, when Kirk and McCoy debate the efficacy of whether or not they should arm the hill people. The villagers are being armed by the Klingons. They have flintlocks. They have weapons they shouldn't have for decades, if not centuries. And the hill people are going to get wiped out unless the Federation steps in and Kirk gives them weapons. So there's parity. So there's an arms race that's stuck there. And of course, McCoy's like, you can't do that. You're condemning these people to years of conflict. But if they don't, they're going to get slaughtered. Now that is a conundrum worthy of Star Trek. One of the things that I really miss is I think about classic Star Trek. I think about it a lot, even though I've been watching it my whole life. And one of the great unsung first season episodes of Star Trek is A Taste of Armageddon. And when the Enterprise rolls up on Aminiar and their neighboring planet Vendikar, they discover that Aminiar and Vendikar have been fighting a war for, I don't know if it's thousands of years, but for a very long time. But they figured out how to manage it. Let's make war manageable. They're fighting it with computers. So if the computers say your city is hit, like, I don't know, your town is hit and it doesn't exist anymore, it's your job as a citizen who lived in that town to show up and willingly go into a disintegration booth and end your life. Now, it's all done, no muss, no fuss. It's all very clean. And obviously, we, along with Captain Kirk, are horrified that a rich, vibrant civilization, instead of end their war, is using the everything the civilization has provided, science and technology, and they've made a way to fight a painless, bloodless, destructionless war. And it's monstrous. And that's a really compelling idea. So then our characters obviously have to grapple with this issue. But that's what great science fiction is. And I love that episode. I think A Taste of Armageddon is one of the classic of all classic Star Trek episodes. I miss episodes like that in Star Trek when there was some kind of conundrum that our characters needed to solve, and it would engage your intellect and your imagination. I miss that. But I don't shy away from politics and storytelling, especially in science fiction, fantasy, and horror, and nor should you, because it's being done in an allegorical way. I mean, Star Wars, the prequel trilogies are all about how democracy falls to an empire. That's absolutely a political story, but it's done in I think a really interesting way. Dean Mikatich is here. Dean says, "Hi, Rob and the Post-Geek Singularity. I have been watching Robservations number 562. In it, you mentioned that you have recently been on a Star Trek forum where you were personally attacked for giving your opinions. Also, before you could get a chance to reply to the attacks, the mods of the forum closed the thread, so you could not. While I was listening to you say this, all I can think is this what Star Trek fandom is now? Personal attacks on people that have different opinions, and if those opinions differ to those running the site, they close the threads to end the discussion? Yes. Yes, pretty much is. I have to say these so-called fans are not real fans of Star Trek. They have obviously missed one of the main messages of Trek, and that is respect. I think that's true of our society. I think overall we have lost, there is a fundamental lack of respect for everything. Everybody's so jaded. You can't, to show respect to something, I guess you seem hopelessly naive or old-fashioned. But there no longer are people respected. And what's interesting is my criticism, as somebody pointed out yesterday, that I never, Sean Pullen said, I never will attack him. I'm looking at the issues. If somebody likes modern Star Trek, I have no problem with them liking modern Star Trek. But once I bring my criticisms to bear on modern Star Trek, everybody takes it personally, which I find kind of odd. I mean, I get that, but I mean, I know that there are things that I like that most people think are garbage, but they're not going to change my mind about what I like. I know why I like something. I also know that I like things that aren't particularly good. I can recognize, what's interesting to me is I can recognize what's good and bad. Now, people will call me a gatekeeper. I'm not stopping anybody. What is a gatekeeper? I don't go onto people's boards or forums and start yelling and screaming at them. I speak my mind on my Twitter page or on Facebook or on this show. I don't go and bomb someone else's channel and say, you suck, you don't know what you're talking about. I'll never do that. People do that to me, though, all the time. And that's fine. When you're going to go in a public forum on social media and spout off your beliefs, you're going to get attacked. But what's interesting is, what I find very troubling, I guess, is no one ever takes into consideration, like now this is something that's happened the last couple of years. Now I get the whole you're an old man shouting at clouds. The Simpsons, this just in, old man shouts at clouds. I get that a lot. And none of the work that I've done in my life or anything is considered. I'm just it's all dispensed with, and it just devolves into personal attacks. Well, I've never done that really to anybody. I attack people's work. Like, I don't think your work is up to par, and I think you're phoning it in, and with the amount of money you're being paid, you should be working harder. And also working in this business, I think it's a privilege, but I just find it interesting that I grew up in a world where Star Trek fans have always debated, have always had arguments about things. That was part of the fun of fandom, because you never found, the arguments didn't usually devolve to you're a dick or being accused of being a racist or something like that. Now it happens all the time. It's a very weird thing. People are so quick to then brand you or cancel you or not understand what you're saying. It's bizarre. And then back to Dean's letter. I have to say these so-called fans are not real fans of Star Trek. They have obviously missed one of the main messages of Trek, and that is respect. You don't have to agree with someone's opinion, but show them respect. There is no need to start throwing insults around or to try to cancel people, because if you do, you're no better than a chimp throwing its crap around. Rob, fandom has never been able to agree on anything, and just like you, I've had many long, heated discussions in person and over the web. But those discussions have never turned into insults. I have always walked away from them with a mutual respect with the person or people I have had with them, even if that meant that we had to agree to disagree. Now, that is not to say I have not run into people on fan forums where insults have been thrown around. But on those sites, the thread has never been closed, and only the person throwing the insult about is either given a timeout or banned, depending on what's been said. Threads have only ever been closed when the discussion has turned into an all-out site war and gotten a little out of hand, but that's normally because it's gone way off topic. Rob, you never said what site this happened on, but I hope it was not an official Star Trek site. It was not. If it was, it's just a lot more proof that the wrong people are now the custodians of Star Trek. Maybe sometime soon we can get back to be respectful of each other, even when opinions differ. Peace and long life, Dean Mikitich. Rob, I don't know if you're being polite or not, but can you please tell Az how to pronounce your middle name? It's now starting to drive me a little nuts when he calls you Meyer and not Meyer. If he keeps it up, I might have to drive up north and tie him to a chair until he gets it right. Az, if you're watching, I kid, of course. I love you so much. But please pronounce it correctly. It's never been a little in joke, like when Rob was having issues with my surname. Well, Mikitich took me a long time to get, man. No, I just look at it as it's never bothered me. Meyer was my grandfather's first name. My dad's father was named Meyer Burnett. He was German. He immigrated from Germany. That's where I got Meyer from. So it's Robert Meyer Burnett. My middle name is my grandfather on my father's side's first name. He had passed away before I was born, so I never got to meet him. But he was a conductor, and he had his baton. My father had framed his baton and had it on the wall of his den my entire life. So, yeah, I mean, I don't mind that. It's fine. He's British. But, yeah, I know I do think we have a fundamental lack of respect. I mean, that's why, and I see it a lot. There's a lot of people. I think that, like, part of the problem that I had with back in June when the people I work with at Collider, who I always liked all the people at Collider. I never had a problem with anybody at Collider. I mean, I had a few run-ins with people that we didn't really understand each other, but I thought those things were but they're not. I mean, apparently people hold grudges, but okay. But a lot of people there just didn't know who I was. I would come in and play this character that was loud and brash and the captain character. I was Ric Flair, the wrestler Ric Flair was somebody I looked to and said, I want to be like that guy if I'm going to play a character. And I think a lot of people thought that's the way I was in real life, which is fine. I mean, you don't go around and tell people everything you do or who you are all the time. But I do think we have a fundamental lack of respect in our culture for other people. And I don't know where that came from. I was always taught to respect everybody. I can't even, my friends' parents who I meet, that I've known, most of them are in their 70s and 80s. And if I knew them growing up, they are still Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. And now they're always like, no, call me by my first name. I have a real hard time doing that. I also have a hard time. I mean, I've been married, but there's one thing I cannot do. I cannot go into a woman's purse. Like if somebody says, oh, it's in my purse, I can't do it. My mom instilled in me, never go into my purse. And I even now, like if you asked me if I had a woman, the most beautiful woman in the world, if she came up to me and she handed me her purse and said, hey, could you get my lipstick out of there or whatever, I would have a very hard time doing it. I mean, if it was Sherilyn Fenn circa Two Moon Junction and she said, can you, I'd be like I can't. And maybe it was because, that's how my parents raised me, but I can't do it. Like I could do it. I mean, obviously I'm not physically incapable of doing it, but I would have a real hard time. I would feel very, very uncomfortable. And it's just, it's just like I can't, if I went to somebody's house now, I'd have a hard time. If you sleep in someone's bed, you can't not make it in the morning. You got to make their, unless they tell you not to. It's just that kind of thing. Like you pick up after yourself when you're at someone's house. But yeah, I think there's a fundamental lack of understanding with people, and I don't get it. But nowadays, what's really interesting, if anybody, I'm not saying I'm a celebrity that's worth, bowing down for, but I have made films. I have worked on official Star Trek projects, and what is very interesting is there's a lot of people that think that somehow, I don't know, because I worked on Axanar or whatever, that they discount anything I've done, and because I disagree with them somehow, that it's okay to be really mean and disrespectful. It doesn't bother me so much as I wonder, why is that okay? Like, if any adult, when I was growing up, it didn't matter if I liked them or not, I always treated adults with the same respect. And that's my place of dealing with people, always comes from a place of respect. But I guess we just don't live in that world anymore. And it's okay. I mean, look, obviously my prattling on about Star Trek Discovery, sometimes I can see how it'd be too much for people. They also don't understand that my hatred of Discovery, there is an element of tongue-in-cheek to it. I mean, there really is. And people should understand that too. But I get it if they don't. Let's see what people are saying here. Wow. Let's go back here. There's lots of people. Wow, there's a lot of people back here. Mark, wow, this is crazy. So Mark C asks, thoughts on the Tommy Lee Jones classic, The Park Is Mine. Oh my God. So my friend Mike Schertz, who actually Dr. Mike Schertz, 18 Delta, Mike Schertz, MD, who I did the Crisis Medicine series with, he read the book, The Park Is Mine, and it was like his favorite book. And he talked about it all the time. And then, of course, the movie came out. I think the movie is okay. I think Mike Schertz probably likes it more than me, but I think it was a not as successful adaptation of a novel as you might want. It's basically about like you a soldier and he decides the park is his. I mean, basically that's in a nutshell. I think the movie could have been better, but it's funny, man. I haven't thought of The Park Is Mine in forever. I mean, that was something. When did The Park Is Mine come out? This is, to me, The Park Is Mine was a junior high school thing. I want to find out. Wow, it was an 85 TV movie, but it says 86, but I want to know about the book. The Park Is Mine book review. Ooh, and Grady Hendrix reviewed it. The Park Is Mine. This is very funny since you brought this up. So Grady Hendrix wrote a book. He's a novelist himself, but he wrote a book called Paperbacks from Hell. that is an overview of horror paperbacks from the 70s and 80s. And I was heavily into horror paperbacks from the 70s and 80s. I still have a lot of them. And one of the things with this book, it was an overview. It had all the great lurid art. Well, I used to be able to go to the Iliad bookstore here in town, and they had a great horror paperback section because nobody cared. Nobody paid any attention to those kinds of horror paperbacks. But since Grady Hendrix' book came out, they're all gone. Everybody, you go to the Iliad bookstore and you can see a lot of Dean Koontz and Stephen King and Peter Straub, and that's not necessarily Anne Rice. That's not a bad thing, but all of the cool, lurid paperbacks that I used to buy when I was a kid and would go and pick up always at the Iliad bookstore, they're all gone because of Grady Hendrix. So there you go. Like, what's an example? I don't know. I'm looking for one that... Oh, here's a good one. This is a good one. Graham Masterton, who wrote The Manitou, wrote this book, The Devils of D-Day. And this is about a demon, if I remember correctly, Elmeek, the demon of knives and sharp edges. When did this come out? Wow, you know what's interesting? When this came out, The Djinn, The Sphinx, Charnel House, and The Manitou apparently were the only books Graham Masterton had written. Wow. 1978. I've had this paperback since 1978. As you can see, I don't like to break my spines. I'm really fanatical. When I read my books, I have to support the spine because I can't stand it when the spine's broke. I can't stand it. So I have to read them like this. But anyway, this is like a lurid. This isn't that lurid of a cover. I mean, a skull coming out of a tank. I always thought The Devils of D-Day. Who wouldn't want to make that movie? I mean, I know J.J. Abrams produced Overlord. I actually kind of liked Overlord, but man, I would love to have made The Devils of D-Day. Maybe one day I will. Who knows? But anyway, so Grady Hendrix. I got to read this because this is great because Mark Jure brought this up. This is his review. It's absolutely astounding that I was never flagged as a school shooter when I was a teenager because two big danger signs were flashing over my head for years. One, I owned a black trench coat a la Harris and Klebold. Two, one of my favorite books was The Park Is Mine. Okay, it came out in 1981, so I would have been 13 and turning 14, which I read cover to cover over and over again. But isn't reading just a passport to adventure? Yes, but reading and rereading a book about a deranged Vietnam vet taking over Central Park, booby trapping and mining it, and then going to war with the NYPD is probably a passport to an involuntary stay at a monitored care facility. They don't write them any trashier than The Park Is Mine. People complain that boys don't read, but that's probably because there aren't books like this for boys to read anymore. The Park Is Mine feels like the novelization of its own TV movie. And it did spawn a TV movie which starred Tommy Lee Jones and Yaphet Kotto, which is no surprise when you realize that the guy who wrote it was Steven Peters, who later wrote the screenplay for the trash classic Wild Things. I did not know that. Clearly, he's a man who knows his good trash from his bad. I can't believe this. Dieter Bastian and I talk about good trash and bad trash in regards to African Kung Fu Nazis. And The Park Is Mine is the Invicta watch of high-quality luxury trash. Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to put this in the live chat. Anyway, sorry, thanks, Mark Chure. You just gave me a total... flashback to my 13 and 14-year-old youth. That's fantastic. I love it. Mark goes on to say, thoughts on the Dirk Benedict Linda Blair classic Ruckus. That one has passed me by. I have not seen Ruckus. I apologize, but that's okay. The joy you have just given me about thinking about The Park Is Mine is amazing. Willow is here. Willow says, why is it that whenever Star Trek characters time travel to an earlier period in human history, they always seem to end up in the U.S.? City on the Edge of Forever, Tomorrow is Yesterday, Assignment Earth, Time's Arrow, Past Tense, Little Green Men, etc. I would say it's just the luck of the draw. It's like whenever you see a picture of Earth from space, you always see like the United States. You always see North and South America. No, that is a very good question. And I think probably it's a production issue. It would be easier on a television budget to recreate an American location rather than a European or Asian location. But you're right. I think that's a failing of shows. And again, there would be a language issue. But yeah, I think you might. Willow goes on to say, I know it might be hard for some people to believe, but the U.S. isn't the only country that exists on Earth. I know. Nope, you're absolutely right. I mean, they are pretty Amerocentric. You're absolutely right. An Aria Has No Name sends in a tip and says, I recently attempted to select your review of Skyfall. To my surprise, there was no surprise. If I marry a volleyball, can I challenge the current couple of the Burnettwork for a couple off? Or did I need to make sure I'm wined enough already to qualify? There was no surprise. Well, you can challenge us to a couple off, if you want to come on the show. Absolutely. I think I need to know more about what you mean. By the way, tonight on Whining About Movies, we are revisiting the Sidney Pollack comedy classic. Actually, it's more of a romantic dramedy. One of my favorite comedic films of all time, 1982's Tootsie. So join us for that tonight. Wilson says, although I'm a volleyball, you cannot judge me on the color of my exterior. I will marry Tom Hanks, and we shall be the new official couple of your channel. If you question my authority, I will tell Nancy Pelosi and MSNBC whatever I say will now be true. No, the official couple of the Burnettwork is not Elizabeth and I. It is Claude and Candida. They're the official couple, unless you're looking to replace them. I don't know. They're a tough act to follow. I don't see them being deposed from their position as the official couple of the channel anytime soon. 200 Watt Studio sends in a super chat and says, thankful for the 6th season, but bummed Cass Anvar out at the end of season 5 because of the serious allegations. If true, he had to go, though. It sucks. Yeah, Cass Anvar has been, he's had some allegations of sexual misconduct happening at conventions and things like that. So, yeah, definitely. If he did those things, and apparently they're convinced enough that he did, that he had to go. But that was a bummer. Ethan Holgate sends in a tip and says, Rob, first of all, it was funny earlier today. You sounded like a robot at the beginning of the John Campea show. You were talking about the new film Bullet Train coming out, but you mentioned great train movies, and don't forget one of Cannon's best, Runaway Train. Didn't I say Runaway Train? I think I did say Runaway Train. You know what I didn't mention is stuff like The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. I didn't say that. I didn't say The Great Train Robbery. But yes, I think I did say Runaway Train. Severed Heart says, how can a place like Stinky Tuna get away with pirating Netflix movies or other streaming services and selling them on Blu-ray? Wouldn't they be fined and shut down by the studios? Well, theoretically, yes. I don't know how they get away with selling Song of the South either, or Dragon Slayer. They should be, but I'll tell you, I think the studios are probably like, and Netflix is probably like, so if you're a Netflix subscriber, which I am, why would you want to buy one of our movies on physical media if you already own it? I mean, if you already have our streaming service. And I'm like, that's how crazy we collectors are. I don't know why. Amazon was streaming Dragon Slayer, and I was talking with my friend Dave Hargrove about it, and I found it. It was on. I told him about it too. I couldn't believe it. It was. They obviously did a new transfer of it, and no one put out a piece of physical media. The problem now, I'll tell you something. The real problem at the studios now is all of the home video departments have been gutted and folded into other departments. So now you have people, they don't even know their catalog. Thank God Warner Archive has Warner Archive, my beloved Warner Archive. I love Warner Archive because they're delving into their archives and putting things out. I mean, God love Warner Archive for putting out movies like The Green Slime on Blu-ray. How do you not support that? You have to support that. Oh my God. You know, or things like Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, the original. Bad Ronald. I wish though that they would get on the train and make Wild Wild Planet. Give me a Blu-ray of Wild Wild Planet, please. Why is that so hard? So I don't know, Severed Heart. To be honest, every time I log over, I was asked, Dieter Bastian asked me to pick up some Stinky Tootin' titles the other day, and for him, and I did. So as long as they're around. By the way, they do a really good job, not to support a bootleg site, but like I bought The Irishman from Criterion, you know, and I can go watch it on Netflix. It's a Netflix movie, and I bought it on Criterion. Hell, I bought it on Stinky Tuna too first, to be honest. I did. 200 Watt Studio sent in a super chat and says, Rob, do you think season 6 will end with a title card summarizing books 7, 8, and 9? How do you think they'll handle the final 3 books? I don't, because the final 3 books jump 30 years into the future. So I would assume that they're going to give us a pretty definitive ending for our characters, but leave it open-ended. Because they could. I mean, it seems strange to me that unless they just don't want to pay, maybe it's economically it doesn't make sense, but it's too bad that they don't go for the final 3 books, and that's why I'm saying you never know. One never knows. So, Torn Atkinson says, is there a best music prize for the film festival? I can donate a prize pack from the darkest of the hillside thickets. There is, actually, a best music and sound design. I'd love that. That'd be great. That's a great idea. And your trailer is going up soon. Thankfully Disturbed sent in a tip and says, I saw a documentary called Evacuate Earth about what would happen if a neutron star was on a collision course for Earth, which would result in total solar system destruction. Would love to see a movie about that, the psychology of total destruction. Oh, dude. I'll flat out say it. I've talked about this before. But one of my favorite duologies, and one of my, if somebody came to me, if a streamer came to me and said, Rob, you can make any science fiction show you want right now, any science fiction show you want, what would you make? And my answer to that is, well, it's right up there. I won't get him down. But they're books by the great science fiction writer Greg Bear. I've talked about it on the show. But the book that I would make into a series is his book. It's actually the second book of a 2-part series, a duology. Anvil of Stars. First of all, I just love the title Anvil of Stars. I think it's one of the great titles of all time. But Anvil of Stars is what I would turn into. But it's the second part of a story that begins with a book called The Forge of God, which is another great book. Here's the plot. I'll lay it out for you. So in The Forge of God, which is not what I would adapt, but in The Forge of God, unbeknownst to mankind, there is a mysterious alien race somewhere out there, some advanced alien race. And to prevent any other race from usurping its position in the universe, they have created von Neumann machines, self-replicating machines, that they've shot out into the universe. And their job is to identify potential developing civilizations that may one day pose a threat to this mysterious alien race. And what they do is, once the threat has been identified, they drop these machines that bore into the core of planets, and it takes about a year. They sort of spin down through the corner of the planet, or through the core of the planet, and at the end of the year, the planet is basically blown up from the inside, and the civilization is destroyed. Well, there is another group of aliens, let's call them the United Federation of Planets, that are trying to figure out who's doing this. And they're always one step behind these von Neumann machines, because once the von Neumann machines have been deployed into a planet core, it's too late. And so the benevolent aliens will come to a planet and they will try and save as much of that planet and as much of the inhabitants of that planet as possible. So what they do is they contact people on Earth and they explain, yes, we're extraterrestrials. We need your help. We want to preserve as much of your culture around the world as we can. We only have a year to do it, and your planet's going to be destroyed. And so they do that. And that's what the Forge of God is about. And it's about the efforts. And of course, spoiler alert, they do not do it. They manage to, they're terraforming Venus and Mars and make them habitable for humanity. They do not save the Earth. Calling now bringing us to the second book, and the book that I would dearly love to adapt as a 7-season or 6-season series, Anvil of Stars. So in Anvil of Stars, this benevolent alien federation, call them, to commit genocide against a planet is the worst crime they have on their books. It's awful, and it must be avenged, according to them. So what they do is they take a group of young people that I don't remember if they volunteer or not. They take a group of young people and they give them what they call a ship of the law, giant, technologically advanced starship. And it is up to these people and the kids, the way I remember it, it's like 15 to 21, maybe younger or something. And they are set off on this starship, and their job is to hunt down and find this malevolent alien race that's destroying planets. And over the course of their journey, they develop their own society. The kids develop, it's not quite like Lord of the Flies, because they've got all this technology and they've got these alien avatars that they can ask questions to. But it's all about them prepping for a potential conflict with wherever this alien race is. And I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to tell you anything more, but it's all about the interpersonal relationships between the characters on the ship, these young people. So the target audience, it's about people in high school and college. It's about the society that they build. And at the same time, they're training for this thing they're going to go take on if they can find it. And it goes from there. And it's fascinating. And then there is a giant ethical conundrum that the book poses, that if you are to uncover a civilization that is committing genocide on a galactic scale, well, actually on a solar system scale, but across the galaxy, would it be then ethical to exterminate them from the universe? And basically that's what our characters are doing. And it goes from there. And I highly recommend it. Both The Forge of God and Anvil of Stars are great books. It's a great read. I mean, now you know what happens at the end of Forge of God, but it's still worth doing. But Anvil of Stars, for whatever reason, captured my imagination. And something happened in it from a plot standpoint, like, that blew my mind. And I was thinking, oh my God, if you could tell this story the way they do in the book, the way Greg Bear does in the book, when you get to this point, I guess it would be at the end of season 3 or the end of season 4, the cliffhanger is so great in terms of what happens. Now, maybe I'm thinking it's great because to me it's intellectual sci-fi. It's what I really like. But I literally, it was one of those moments where you're like, holy shit. And you wonder, and then it just gets better. And what happens is it's fascinating. And it's got, I don't want to say what it's got, but don't go to Wikipedia. If you're interested in the story, you've got to read the book, because it really is worth your time. Anvil of Stars is the second book, and Forge of God is the first. But Anvil of Stars, you don't need to read the Forge of God before you read Anvil of Stars. You could read Anvil of Stars because Anvil of Stars basically begins with the Earth coming apart. So, and you'll get it. Anyway, I don't know why. Oh, thankfully Disturbed brought that up, because the psychology of total destruction, it deals a lot with that. And so thanks for sending me off on that reverie. Thankfully disturbed. Stubble McShave is here. Stubble McShave says, weekly releases are best for high-profile series. I agree. A TV series without an established IP may benefit from getting released all at once. Such TV shows need to penetrate all the noise, and many need a focused punch to get noticed. Personally, I prefer weekly, though. I do too. Because again, you know, when you binge these shows, they're in and out of your mind. You're on to the next. I mean, I have binged shows that I barely remember. If I see a movie, I'm completely immersed. I remember movies, but I binge watch these shows, and I so want to rush through the story they're telling me that I don't enjoy them as much. Thankfully Disturbed says, a follow-up to the last tip. This movie idea, would it be in contrast to the standard disaster movie with a tenet of humans survive what is the psychosocial, social, financial, political, spiritual implications of total and complete extinction of humans? That's definitely part of it. What does it mean to have our entire civilization destroyed? I mean, that's all part of the whole thing. And I think absolutely. And I think that's, you know, what does that mean? And I do. There are movies that deal with, like, is it The Divide, where everyone's in a bunker after this apocalypse, or even the Alex Proyas movie Knowing with Nicolas Cage. I think that, you know, we always see movies, dystopian films, where there's a calamity and humanity is falling into disarray, and we're basically cave people with technology. We're brutish thugs. But I think the idea of what it would mean to lose our entire, like if we knew that we were on a collision course with a comet and it was going to be an extinction level event, like what would we do? There's an Australian movie that I picked up. Is it I haven't watched it yet, called I think it's These Final Hours. Or there's a great Canadian film called Last Night that David Cronenberg's in, actually. That's about the last 6 hours of life on Earth. And I really like that movie. I love stories like that. I mean, it's a downer when you know that the world's going to end, but still, I do love stories like that. It's kind of it's a sub-genre of science fiction I quite enjoy. Jeff Yerke is here. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for supporting the channel that way. Hi, Rob. Mrs. Y and I are huge fans of The Expanse. Big difference between it and fake Trek: world building. It carefully painted a foundation of cultures, classes, planets, and characters that allowed it to introduce mind-bending plots. Live long and prosper, the Yerk Man. Listen, I agree with you. And I think that one of the real things that I hate about Star Trek Discovery is the world building has been just horrible. It's unbelievable. It doesn't make any sense. And when you have a show counterpointed by, like Discovery, if you have The Expanse, and again, it's Hugo Award-winning literary sci-fi, and to watch, I mean, Star Trek should be had the depth that The Expanse has, and it just doesn't. And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. Stubble McShave says, I received my 10th anniversary leather edition of The Way of Kings, the first book of the Stormlight Archive by Sanderson today. It's divided into 2 volumes inside a case. It has a great leather cover and awesome artwork. It's a hefty piece, clocking in at 3.3 kilograms, or about 7 pounds. Wow, that sounds beautiful. Nay sent in a super chat and says, by the way, Stubble, you've already sent us a video of your book collection. You should send us what that looks like. Nay said, did you hear about the random silver monolith found in the Utah mountains recently? Yes. For those who don't know, I believe it was a helicopter that was on some kind of a survey mission, and they were in the hills, the mountains in Utah, like the Badlands of Utah maybe, and they spotted something from the air, and it's like a 10-foot tall silver monolith. It's not 1 by 4 by 9 like the monolith in 2001. And why they missed out, I mean, it's something different, and they don't know what it is. They don't know where it came from. They think it's probably an artist put it there, or maybe they didn't. I'd like to believe it's an indicator that they're coming, that they're indeed coming. But then again, why would they come to that part of Utah? It's not even a great place to land. But yes, I think it's amazing. I don't know what it is. I love that story. So for those of you who don't know, maybe I can find a picture of it. It's pretty amazing that you look at this shit and it's like CNN, the Utah monolith probably wasn't the work of aliens, but it's still a mystery. Here, look, yeah, this is great. Here, I'll put this in and I will show it to you because it's pretty dope, actually. And I will, let me call it up here. And so here it is. This is what they found in the desert in Utah, for those of you who might not have seen it. There it is. Mysterious shiny monolith found in otherworldly Utah desert. This, by the way, is true. It was spotted. Deep in the Mars-like landscape of Utah's Red Rock Desert lies a mystery, a gleaming metal monolith in one of the most remote parts of the state. The smooth, tall structure was found during a helicopter survey of bighorn sheep in southeastern Utah, officials said Monday. A crew from the Utah Department of Public Safety and the Division of Wildlife Resources spotted the gleaming object from the air on November 18th and landed to check it out during a break from their work. They found the three-sided stainless steel object is about as tall as two men put together, but they discovered no clues about who might have driven it to the ground among the undulating red rocks or why. This thing is not from another world, said Lieutenant Nick Street of the Utah Highway Patrol, part of the Department of Public Safety. Still, it's clear that it took some planning and work to construct the 10 to 12 foot or 3 to 4 meter monolith and embed it in the rock. The exact location is so remote that officials are not revealing it publicly, worried that people might get lost or stranded trying to find it and need to be rescued. The monolith evokes the one that appears in Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey because it's on federal land. It's illegal to place art objects without authorization. The Bureau of Land Management officials are investigating how long it's been there, who might have created it, and whether to remove it. Damn it, they should not remove this. But look at this. Can you believe it? There's no one there for scale, but I saw a picture of like two dudes, one of them climbing on the shoulders of the other to get to the top of it. This thing, this looks like you're on the set of The Mandalorian. This doesn't even look like it's out there in the I just love this. I don't know who did this, but I think it's great. So good on you. What is not to love about that? That's why, I can never really, no matter what craziness is happening in the world, there's always somebody who's doing something cool. You got to go, really? Stubble McShave sends in a tip and says, concerning politics and entertainment, I think entertainment should pose philosophical questions. Many philosophical questions can have a political bent to them, and those should be examined. That's the key word. Examine a topic and don't preach about that topic. Well, I agree. I mean, what's not to love? What's not to love about that kind of stuff? I think that's what makes life interesting. I like contemplating the great philosophical questions of life. I think it's good. Darth Plato, speaking of philosophical questions of life, Darth Plato sends in a super chat and says, designer babies, just because we can doesn't mean we should. Are you kidding? The way parents treat their kids, you think kids are special snowflakes now. Wait until they've been designed by their parents. I mean, kids have already become a hideous fashion accessory for their parents, but once they're designed, oh my God, I can't even imagine what a hideous future that would be. Brendan Sheehy sends in a tip and says, apart from the unique visuals and original concept, what am I looking forward to most about WandaVision is an MCU story that won't consistently be punctuated with action. It'll be so refreshing to see more character-focused yarns where the actors can excel. I agree, man. I think WandaVision, I'm really excited to see where it's at. I mean, there's no world-destroying, I don't think there's world-destroying Thanos out there or something like that. I really can't wait. I really, really can't wait. Yeah, I think it's going to be, I think that's the way to go, and I can't wait to see WandaVision. Alexander Wilson says, thoughts on the recent battle of Dave Chappelle versus Viacom CBS over Chappelle's show and not paying Chappelle anything for the Viacom CBS licensing of the show. Chappelle convinced Netflix to pull the show over the payment battle. Your thoughts? look, again, I keep thinking about Stargate. Everybody asks me about the Stargate franchise. Stargate was created by Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich. Do you know how much money they get for the Stargate TV shows? How many there have been? 0. They created Stargate. But in order to get their movie made and get it out, they sold it, And so how much, making TV shows is so lucrative, and they got none of that crazy cheddar. The problem is, when you're making these kinds of deals in Hollywood, everyone is going to fuck you. You do not get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate, period. And when Chappelle was making his show, I don't know what his original deal was, but it wasn't good enough that that was able to happen. Thank God that Netflix pulled the show over the payment battle. I mean, Netflix has a great relationship with Chappelle. Obviously, they've been doing some very good business together. But, I think it's terrible. It's like Prince, my beloved Prince Rogers Nelson, when he wanted to get his masters back from Warner Brothers, he made a very public battle to do that. And it's really awful. It's really awful. What's going on with Taylor Swift is unbelievable to me. But that's something that happens in our culture. It shouldn't. But, when you're trying to start out, you make these kinds of deals that are Machiavellian, draconian. They're just horrible. And you wind up, if your stuff becomes famous or beloved the world over and you haven't properly taken care of the ownership issues, because you were just trying to start out after all, and I just want to be a singer or a comedian, and I got this great deal. Well, it's great while it lasted, but now it fucks you in the end. You've got to make sure that you drive these hard bargains, and that's true of anything. You don't get what you negotiate or deserve. You get what you negotiate. That's all you will ever get. So make sure that you negotiate well. BL Alley says, come on, Rob. Ruckus is awesome, especially if you like your burgers very rare. I am sure, BL Alley, that is a fun joke, but I don't know. I have not seen Ruckus. I don't like my burgers very rare, but, Devin Hilton. Thoughts on George Clayton Johnson? Did you ever meet him? I feel he is underrated when people talk about those old 50s and 60s writers. Oh my God, Devin. When I was taking Max Lamb's Visiting Artists Seminar class that I got my first industry job out of, guess who taught that class for 10 weeks? George Clayton Johnson. And there was like 20 of us. Now, for those of you who don't know, George Clayton Johnson wrote Star Trek, Twilight Zone. He co-wrote Logan's Run with William F. Nolan. He was like the sci-fi Gandalf. And he was, when we knew him, I mean, when he was teaching at USC, he would go into the bathroom and blaze up, light up a spliff. He was amazing. He was an amazing writer. He had an incredible heart. He was a very learned, compassionate man, and I could listen to him for hours and hours and hours. And I did get to listen to him. I think he did it for like 10 weeks or something, maybe 8 weeks, and he would speak for 3 hours. And then he would hang out and chat with us. He was amazing. He's an incredible writer. I believe that he wrote the original Ocean's 11. Let me check on that. I think so. And he died in 2015. He was a character. I think he looked the way he looked at the end of his life for like 30 years. Wow, he wrote a book called Jessica's Run, a new sequel for Logan's Run, the Logan's Run universe, and it was never published. He wrote an Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Yeah, okay, he wrote that's interesting. He wrote the original Ocean's 11 novelization based on the story by George Clayton Johnson and Jack Golden Russell, and the screenplay by George Johnson. The original Twilight Zone episodes he wrote: The Four of Us Are Dying, Execution, A Penny for Your Thoughts, The Prime Mover, A Game of Pool, Nothing in the Dark, of course, Kick the Can, and 90 Years Without Slumbering. Roots. He wrote a Route 66. He wrote Honey West. Of course, he wrote The Man Trap, which is their very first Star Trek episode to air. Man, he actually appeared as an actor in The Intruder as Phil West, the villain. That's crazy. Amazing. So there you go. He was an amazing guy. An amazing guy. He won a Lifetime Inkpot Award, a Lifetime Achievement Award as a screenwriter and a comic book writer. So there you go. Yeah. He was crazy. He was amazing, and I got to hang out with him for weeks. Anonymous sends in a tip and says, imagine you're at a Thanksgiving dinner with Shaw and you cut open the turkey and inside is Han. Hashtag Han had it coming. Everyone knows that I love Han Solo, the character that Sung Kang plays in, well, he was created in the movie Better Luck Tomorrow that Justin Lin directed, early in his career, but Sung Kang plays Han Solo as in the city Seoul. It's his nickname. I am a huge fan of that. And I've been waiting for him to receive justice for a long time now. And everyone knows I want to have it happen. And why you got to make fun of me that way? Mark C says, how upset are you that we've never got a Blu-ray version of the Chevy Chase classic Under the Rainbow? Is it a classic though, Mark? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I don't, I saw Under the Rainbow when it first came out. I wouldn't exactly call it a classic, but I'm a big Wizard of Oz fan. So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings from across the 28 known galaxies, I have another work engagement at 4 o'clock, which I have to go do. And I'm going to go do that. So I will say goodbye to all of you today. Thank you for being here. I want to say thank you to my moderating staff. Thanks to Mike Bodden and to Greg Smith and to the Richard and to Robert Pariso. I don't know who else is here. Joshua Levesque is here. I think Robert Pariso and Joshua Levesque are the only ones here. I'm not sure. But I want to thank you guys for being great moderators. So thank you very much. I like my moderating staff a great deal. I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel, sending letters, sending super chats and tips. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. A lot of those things are going to be going to making awards for the film festival, of which we got a lot of stuff coming in that's good. Please go and look look at the films. And starting in December, we are going to have them voted on, not just the votes they have now, but we're gonna kick up the jams. And we're going to promote the film festival for the first 2 weeks of December, get a lot more eyeballs on it. I've made a trailer for it once all the films are up. And you can vote, and the film that gets the most likes is going to win the Sally Field Lifetime Achievement Award. That's going to be that's true. We're giving that award away for the film festival. Thumbs up, because they like you. They really like you. That's going to be, and you can game the system on that one. There's an award that I think everybody can game. If you like it, there you go. So tell your friends, and hopefully they'll watch the movies before they give them a thumbs up. They won't just do a drive-by thumbs up, but you never know. Anyway, the end of Robservations, the show about something, episode number 563. Thank you for being here. Remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. Join us tonight for Whining About Movies, where Elizabeth and I will talk about one of my favorite comedy films of all time, Tootsie, Sidney Lumet's 1982 Tootsie. Jessica Lange won an Academy Award. The film was nominated for Best Picture, and I love it. Watching it again yesterday, it's just as delightful as it was when I first saw it at the Cinerama Theater in downtown Seattle in 1982. So thank you all for that. And with that, I say to the rest of you, have a better day. Ooh, and as I begin our journey into the last 2 episodes of The Prisoner tomorrow with Once Upon a Time on his channel, Heel versus Babyface, join us. Thanks, everybody. Have a better day.